Hi, kitty cats. Today is Winter Solstice 2025. This year has been, challenging, let's say. And today, what I wanted to talk about are those gifts I would love to see under my solstice tree today. Now, of course, Winter Solstice is about beginning to rest and prepare for the coming year, not gifts. So, let's think of this as my wish list for 2026 as well. And then after we go through all of our wishes, we can hop back into Super Lesbian Animal RPG. We left our protagonists in another dimension altogether, preparing to fight some big bird. So I suppose we should figure out what comes next. Let me do my little live stream opening plugs. I am Dr. Amethysta Herrick. I am both a scientist and a content creator. I also have purple ink on my fingers there. Look at that. If you see that, that's what it is. I discuss identity and gender using the scientific method. Kind of fun. You can find more information about me and the work that I do at my website, which you can see down below there. That is purplepawclan.com. There you can find all the social media networks that I am on. You can read the articles that I write, and you can listen to and watch the podcasts I record with interesting people. It's not just me doing this. And finally, you can check out the hypnotherapy work that I do to help people actually work through issues with identity and gender, maybe work through some buried trauma. If you'd like to support my work directly, you can get a subscription on the website, purplepawclan.com, for as little as $5 a month. But you can even just go there and sign up for my free newsletter that publishes about every 2 weeks. Actually, at the full moon and the dark moon, so there you go. And then if you follow me on social media, if you like and share my stuff, that is just great support as well. And finally, I do also publish other people's work on the website, purplepawclan.com. If you would like to contribute your original work in identity and gender, you can send me an email. There's a contact page once again, and I will finish purplepawclan.com. So I'm already seeing Zoe. Hi, Zoe. Zoe Lane is a new friend of mine. We connected a couple of weeks ago, and we're trying to put something together. So hi, Zoe. Totally glad to see you here. I also see Angel. Hi, Angel. Angel and I have known each other for a couple of years, I think. I also see Margie and Angela. Hello. And Victoria. There we go. My contact lenses are a little dry. And Charlotte. Hi, Charlotte. All right. Today is Winter Solstice 2025. I forgot to put lips color back on. Whoops. Today, so Winter Solstice 2025 is at least my year-end holiday. And really, frankly, whether you celebrate a different holiday at the end of the year or not, astronomically, it's Winter Solstice. So blessings of the Winter Solstice, whether you liked it or not. Today, at least traditionally, is when our ancestors would acknowledge, first of all, the work that they did during the year, to get all the food grown and all the things that they built, livestock, whatever. But more to the point, they also recognized that they were going into the coldest months of the year. But there was at least one blessing going into these cold months, which was that the sun is going to start moving south as you perceive it when it rises in the morning beginning today. So days get longer. That's the thing. It's going to get colder, but the days were going to get longer. Margie does bring up that it's not winter solstice for here. Good point. You've got, she's got, whoops, how come that's not showing? Oh, that's kind of weird. Wait, what is going on with that? Hang on a second. Let me see. Let me pull my thing up. I think that's not working. Hit that little button there. Oh yeah. Oh, I did what's funny, I had the wrong window open. That's gonna have to. Anyway, we'll figure it out. Point is, Margie says it's summer solstice because she is down in New Zealand, so southern hemisphere. So sorry, if you're in the northern hemisphere. So days are going to get longer in the northern hemisphere, and then Margie's days will start to get shorter. The thing is that knowing that was a blessing because it implied, the whole world could make it through another year. So this was a time for gifts and making merry. So what I wanted to do, I want to talk about winter solstice as a holiday, like how I got to caring about winter solstice, and not like astronomically. Sorry, I'm just not that great with astronomy. But then also what I would wish for as we begin this brand new trip around the sun. I have 3 gifts that I want to see in the world in 2026. Anyway, and then we have Super Lesbian Animal RPG. I don't know, we were starting to get ready to fight some big bird. I don't even really remember the specifics on that. All I remember was that there was some kind of, this is a big ass bird. Somebody said, go beat the big ass bird. Okay, we'll do that. Quick announcement. I also want to call out Morgan. She made it home after gender-affirming surgery. I don't know if she's here right now, but she made it home after gender-affirming surgery. She's apparently doing well. So, Morgan, blessings to you as well. Good job on all of that. And finally, there was one more thing that I wanted to bring up, which is, believe it or not, I launched a Discord server. Yeah, how about them apples? I will post a link in the show notes. I will also probably end up putting up a post on, other streaming platforms, so that if you wanted to join the Discord server and talk about, all the ideas around identity and gender that I do, that'd be the way to do it. You could actually communicate with me directly, and who wouldn't want that, huh? I don't know. Strange people, that's who. All right, let me see. I don't... Wait, is this real? Margie says she remembers that NASA was thinking of sending Big Bird, I guess Sesame Street's Big Bird, to space on the Challenger when it blew up. I don't... Really? What the hell? Oh, here's a neat thing, too. So Angela's in the UK. So Angela brings up there's a large number of people meeting at Stonehenge today for the winter solstice, because Stonehenge is aligned to mark out both the winter solstice and the summer solstice. It's actually only been around, estimates vary, but some people say that, maybe 5,000 years is as far back as maybe 9,000 years when it was built. So it hasn't been long enough. Our Earth does have a precession of the equinoxes, like you do, which is why our astrology is different from other astrology. How about if I keep going here? But it hasn't changed enough to that Stonehenge doesn't still show winter and summer solstice, which is pretty cool. If you are in Ireland, you might go to Newgrange, which is an underground. What do you call that? It's like there's a word for it. It's like a barrow, but I can't come up with a word exactly right now. But there was a small hole at the top of Newgrange that allows the light of the winter solstice sun to come in, and apparently it's not a big barrow either, so it's very hard to get in there. I would love to do that, but I'm pretty confident like the people of Newgrange will be like, no, that's cool, you stay there, because we're all afraid of you Americans. So Angel brings up and rightly so, by the way, Angel brings up that we've had a couple of amazing years of sisterhood. So true. And then Angel also brings up happy solstice to me. May my hearth be warm, belly full, and heart even more full. That is so adorable. Thank you, Angel. If I could have popped it up, I would. I opened my little window a little too slowly. Thanks, Margie. You know what? In memory of Rob Reiner. No, we're not going to bloody sing Stonehenge tonight. So this is Spinal Tap. I actually watched Spinal Tap 2 on the plane home from Los Angeles, Friday night. And then we watched it again yesterday. It is actually really super funny. I'm just going to tell you, I got a big crack out of that. If you like Spinal Tap, like this has got some funny bits. Funny enough that I laughed. So, all right, here we go. I want to talk about just winter solstice, becoming a pagan. Especially after decades of atheism. I don't really talk a lot about the whole spiritual journey, but I gotta imagine it's pretty clear that I am pagan. So, what does that mean? Let's talk actually, interestingly, just about the word pagan. Initially, that word only meant people who lived outside bigger cities. The word pagan is derived from the Latin, which is paganus. In Latin, that means something along the lines of like rustic or undeveloped. Oh my gosh, I think I see the property wives. Holy cats, do I? Oh, I do. Hi, Kaylee. Hi, Riley. Or whoever you are. I sure hope you're doing okay. I hope the kid's doing great too. So blessings to you. All right, paganus. Sorry, paganus. The word means something along the lines of rustic or even like undeveloped. So it implied areas outside of cities that are undeveloped, right? When they applied it to people, say the people who lived in these partly undeveloped areas, then it meant something kind of like bumpkins. If you were to think of like country bumpkins the way that we say it today, that's what paganus meant. When you turn that into something that the Christian church used, they used it to describe these settlements, but they used it to describe those settlements that ultimately were too small to build a church. Like if they were too far out from a city, you'd need to build another church, and maybe you'd have like a priest. It would be, you could have a priest that travels out there to do whatever priests do. I guess I'm a little unsure. But if that settlement wasn't big enough to justify spending money to have that full-time priest doing, anyway, whatever it is priests do, or build a church, then those people were called paganus. They were pagan because they were out in the middle of nowhere, and the Christian church kind of didn't care about them. They're like, whatever. Over time, the word pagan became pejorative. Certainly, once the Roman Empire was renamed as the Holy Roman Empire, because it unified the four major sects of Christianity, at least at the time. The Holy Roman Empire, you probably know, set forth on things like crusades to rectify those people who were paganus, who weren't Christian. Right around around that time, we're entering the medieval period. So now we're in, 1100s, 1200s. And all of a sudden, all of the art, all of the literature, all of the religious writings focused on conversion therapy. I don't think there's a better word. Literally, conversion therapy. Basically, if you weren't Christian, you should either convert or die. Not much different, I guess, from what conversion therapy today, right? Somehow this was supposed to deliver a message of love that acknowledged free will and, of course, being able to choose whether or not you wanted eternity in heaven or eternity in hell. Anyway, somehow, but that certainly didn't, right? I like this. The Holy Roman Emperor was none of the above. I'm assuming you mean holy, because it was Roman, I suppose, and certainly an empire, but there wasn't a lot of holiness to it. All right, that was the word pagan. So as a kid, this is now we're going back to my life here. There's a quick history lesson. As a kid, I was barely exposed to religion. So, my parents divorced when I was 8, so it was 1978. My father was not religious. So I entered the first church ever like around 8 years old, maybe 9 years old. That's entering a church. I may not have been religious, but I was absolutely very spiritual and very magical. I had very kind of a magical childhood. So when I found religion, I thought I'd totally found a home. I should say Christianity. When I entered that church, I thought I'd found a home. I was like, these are spiritual people, maybe magical people, because I didn't really know anything about religion. It's like it could be the same magic that's kind of gone through my life, maybe. And believe it or not, when I was younger, I'm going to throw this out here and you could be like, whoa. I actually intended to enter the seminary. I guess I don't know what it's called in in the Lutheran sect. I'm a little unsure. I don't know. Somebody else will have to tell me. But around 13 or 14, because I don't know, when do you start those? Anyway, 13 or 14, two things happened. One was that I was slowly going into puberty. I've said several times I likely have a partial androgen insensitivity syndrome, so my puberty state started pretty late, 14, 15 years old. So somewhere in that area, I was beginning puberty, and then I also began what are called confirmation classes. And this is like a Lutheran catechism type class. So I found out through these classes to be confirmed in whatever it's called, to be confirmed as part of the congregation of a Lutheran church. I found out that everything that I am, from having a magical sort of bent to me, to being transgender, to being pansexual, would get me ousted from this community in a heartbeat. And I thought about that for a while, and I was just like, well, no big deal, right? I mean, I can just deny myself. And believe it or not, I made a pretty stunning choice, at least for, 13, 14-year-old, 14-year-old. I quit going to church, told my mom I'm not going to go to church anymore. And she was probably, disappointed. But I thought of it as self-preservation. Because don't forget what I said above about conversion therapy. Right? It was totally, I was worried about something like that happening. And I certainly didn't even have that phrase. I was just kind of worried that somebody was going to come after me and call me, well, bad things. How about that? Call me a bad person. So I started thinking of myself as an atheist. Why not? That went from like 13, 14 years old up to 41. Well, I think 42. When our son was born, let me actually look at a couple of these. Oh, here's a comment. So Margie knew a minister in the Evangelical Lutheran Church of Canada who was not a good man. Well, listen, I don't think that's unexpected. I do appreciate the last bit of the comment. Quite the contrary. We can't even talk about what he did without risking demonetization. Oof. Yeah. I shouldn't be laughing about that. It's the whole thing. You're just like, why? These are the people who are supposed to love you. What the? And maybe they do, just in ways you wish they didn't. So when our son was born, this was 2011, I had a really bad summer of mental health in 2012, actually. And I ended up in a hospital for how about if I just say a long time? It's quite a while. And I decided after I got out that it was time for me to figure out what the hell I was doing with my life and the world. And one of those figuring outing bits was looking at spirituality again. I don't really know why. I think I just kind of went, let me do that. And I did begin meditating, and maybe it was the meditation that caused me to go, you know what, let me look at this a little bit more. I was, of course, taught there are no other religions. So I have the tendency, even today, to say religion when really what I mean is Christianity. I still make that fumble. Because it says in the Christian doctrines, look, there's nothing else. You needn't look elsewhere because we have the truth just right here. And that's why we can't talk about the things that we do without risking demonetization, right? But I had learned that nothing else existed. So I kind of cast this big wide net. Let me see what kind of religious philosophy I can find. I ended up studying Indian philosophy pretty extensively, to the point that I started learning some Sanskrit just to make sure that, that the translations I was reading, expressed what the Sanskrit did appropriately. So that was one thing. I studied a bunch of Indian philosophy. And then I started studying Celtic history and religion pretty extensively too. Because I'm, a lot of my background is from the UK, and then some from Germany, some from Scandinavia, some, I'm Europe-y I'm Europey. Not syrupy, but at times, actually, when I've eaten pancakes and dropped it, I've gotten syrupy. So I'm also Europey. But that's why I studied Celtic history, because I was like, hey, these may be my people. Bit of a bummer here. We have very, very few written accounts of Celtic people. Let me rephrase that. We do, we do have written accounts. We don't have written accounts of Celtic people by the Celts. Their tradition was largely oral. They didn't choose to write things down. In some ways, there were it was advised against because it was more powerful to be able to transmit something through memorization. So an oral tradition. But then also, the Roman gods invaded Europe. The Roman Empire invaded Europe, and then up into the UK. Interestingly, not Ireland, and you can see that not only in their religion but also their language. Fascinating tidbit there. Now the Romans were brilliant at a process called syncretism. Syncretism means that a group will come in and say that your beliefs are theirs. And Romans were great. They'd go in somewhere and go, wow, this is a really beautiful river, let's say. This is a really beautiful mountain. You know, do you have a god or a goddess? And the Celts would go, oh, absolutely. It's, let's say Danu, if you're looking at the Danube. Danu, which is the Irish way of saying one of the big mother goddesses that gave birth to a whole lot of other ones. Anyway, the Romans would go, oh my gosh, we totally have a god just like Danu. And so they'd put that on top of it, the syncretism. So Celts would go, oh, these guys are pretty nice. Like, that's not convert or be stabbed. That was, was at least a recognition that there were beliefs there first. But they said, oh, your gods are all the same as ours. Now, the Romans, in the meantime, did write some accounts of the Celtic people, primarily so that they could justify invading the territory that they were. You may have heard this put as the phrase, history is written by the winners. That's totally what it was. So there are accounts of things that Celt did that are not at all backed up by anything having to do with archaeology or anthropology. And it really sort of here's another use of what Margie says. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain there, right? I mean, we're invading places here. We just don't bother us too much. So I like this. Thank you, Angela. Angela says she's interested in all religions, but don't believe in any religion or belief. I think that's where I ended up. Once I had done a bunch of studying, I call myself a pagan. The community has reclaimed that word. I mean, it's still mean, and now it's come to mean just anti-Christian, which there's no anti there because pagan beliefs are that all gods are one god. So I am now a pagan in part because of that tolerance. Because when all gods are one god, there's no god better than another. And that's nice because it means you don't have things like, say, crusades or conversion therapy, because they're just the same. It's just different ways of looking at the universe. Hi, Miranda. There is also, interestingly, a huge overlap between paganism and the queer community. I don't mean necessarily the organizations, although, was it last week? I guess it was last week. I talked about Storm Fairy-Wolf and his queer, his whole queer take on the fairy tradition, which is a branch of a type of Wicca, type of witchcraft. Let me say that instead. So they're not necessarily the organizations, but the people. If you go to a pagan conference, and I got to tell you, someday you should go to that because it is ridiculously tolerant. It's one big, huge... You may as well go to a pride festival. That's what it is. There's a huge overlap between paganism and the queer community. So anyway, became a pagan. I actually went through some training in a druid tradition. That was the order of bards, ovates, and druids. That's over in in the UK. And then I didn't go all the way through. Well, there's 3 grades, and I didn't get quite to the 3rd grade, much like in the rest of my schooling. So I am currently a member, however, of the Sisterhood of Avalon. And some of you, if you've followed any of this for apparently at this point running on 2 years, you may recall I did an interview with somebody named Jenna Tellendrew. And Sisterhood of Avalon, that's her order. It's very lunar based, superimposed on the solar cycle. So it's lunar cycle on top of a solar cycle, and it's really amazing. To me, it works great with my strong feminine leanings, so the lunar bits, as well as, the magical practices that I kind of come up with over the course of a decade. So that's how we got here. My apologies for taking so long here. I'm looking at this. So I celebrate the winter solstice. I love saying things like this. I celebrate the winter solstice as the time the sun is born. No, you got it wrong. I meant sun with a U, right? That is the spiritual significance of the winter solstice. Solstice, now we're going to go back to Latin. Where's Matt? It's a shame Matt's not here. He'd be dropping Latin left and right. Or Margie, I don't know why you haven't put up some sort of e pluribus unum type thing. The sun, so the word solstice comes from the sun. So, as our Earth moves around the sun, right, it's the axis of rotation is at an angle relative to its rotation around its orbit around the sun. So what that does is make the sun appear to rise in a separate place every morning, except at the solstices. At the solstices, the sun appears to stop moving for 2 or 3 days, and that static sun is solstice, magically. So anyway, when the sun begins to move again, it is thought of in pagan tradition as the sun being born back into this never-ending cycle of the Earth's existence, that now winter will be ending so that we get to spring, and then summer, and then autumn, back to that winter again, where we can have another solstice and do the whole thing over and over and over again, because we have an Earth that we're going to hold on to in perpetuity, right? So now that we've gone through all this history, mine and world history, now I can get to the gifts. Hopefully that was at least vaguely of interest to you here. What do we got? So I said hi to Miranda. Oh, here we go. So Charlotte brings up, Charlotte says that she sticks with being Wiccan, with, I guess, Wiccan beliefs, though she would say she's a multi-theist without any belief in false gods. Yeah. So Wicca, Wicca has a troubled history to me. I actually brought something up, and on that Discord server, which again, if you want to join, I'll stick a link down there. Or it's purple.pod/discord, purpl.pw/discord. It's got a troubled history in that, in the UK, there were anti-witchcraft laws up until, I believe, the year 1952. Might have been 51, and Angela, maybe you can correct me on that. And then Gerald Gardner, the founder of Wicca, wrote a book that came out the year later, because now there are no anti-witchcraft laws, so now he's not going to be, say, burned at the stake, right? 1950s, yes, I'm serious, 1950s. So one of the things that Gerald Gardner did, however, is say that he had a grandmother, and that grandmother, the string of grandmothers going back into perpetuity, that's sort of a Wiccan lore kind of thing, that you go, we have this really authentic tradition of grandmothers going back into perpetuity, or into antiquity, and that's why what we talk about is authentic, it works, efficacious. So it's a really interesting sort of balance between authenticity and efficacy, and so that's kind of a fun topic that I'm not going to get into. But Wicca, multi-theism, I get that. My beliefs are largely pantheistic, so the idea that the Universe itself is a goddess. I think of her as a goddess. So there you go. Ooh, here we go. Look, I got all kinds of good. So Miranda says she was baptized as an infant. Yes, I didn't get baptized until I was 8 or 9. 8 or 9. So Miranda says when she was a young adult, she was baptized again. That's interesting. Was it a different sect, do you say? I don't know. Anyway, Miranda says her first thought coming out of the water was, I don't believe all this. I think that works. So here we go. I like this, Angela. So Angela says her belief is that if she sets her mind to achieve a goal wholeheartedly, then she's achieved it. Like when she decided to transition, it was completely achieved in 3 years. An interesting point here, right? And I'm not trying to dismiss what you're saying, Angela. Aleister Crowley, one of the big points that he made is that the definition of magic is the art and science of, I'm trying to remember how he puts it, but of using will, of enacting change through the use of will. I think I'm quoting that more closely than I could have. What you just said is you set your mind to achieve a goal. I think that was magical. You used your will to enact change. There was an art to it. There was a science to it. And there you go. Aleister Crowley, at the very least, would approve. So here we go. Miranda says, yeah, there's so many ways to honor the mystery of our existence. I like this. Here we go. Bo Hall says, our planets and days of the week are named after these tall tale beings. Yeah, Monday comes from the moon. Tuesday, I'm forgetting who it is. Tier something, I'm forgetting. Something like that. Wednesday. What the hell was Wednesday? Oh, Woden. So it was Woden. Thursday comes from Thor. Friday comes from Freya or Freyr. I can't remember exactly. These are primarily Scandinavian gods, interestingly enough. Saturday comes from Saturn. That was a Roman thing. And then Sunday is venerating our sun. There you go. I'm just going to pop this up because I have no idea what to make of it. Margie is not pantheistic. She wears dresses and skirts. Good thinking. All right, so let me get rid of that too. Okay, so it's been 30 minutes. I'm going to say my name's Amethysta Herrick, Dr. Amethysta Herrick. I am both a scientist and a content creator. Today I'm talking about the Winter Solstice, what it means to me, and how the gifts that I hope to see in 2026. Which I will get to right now. I saw this week, it came out of at least Mehmet Oz and, what's his name? RFK Jr. I saw the phrase sex rejecting, I'm going to put this in quotation fingers, hang on. Sex rejecting procedures. So this was in the news this week. I talked a little bit about this in my Transgender Joy video that came out literally like an hour and a half ago. This is a new phrase that's being bandied about by conservatives. And it turns, if you look at the symmetry here, it turns all of the terms of gender affirming care on their heads. If you look at that, you've got, gender gets conflated with sex. One being as much a social as a biological phenomenon, and gender, by the way, sex being a purely biological phenomenon. And I've spoken at length about bioessentialism. I have no big need to speak much more about bioessentialism, but, when you look at sex rejecting procedures, it first of all does conflate gender with sex to make the whole thing bioessentialist. It also implies that affirming your existence, affirming your health, that's conflated with rejecting conservative rhetoric, which apparently is, bad. I don't know. I don't think so. And finally, instead of care for the human experience or humans themselves, that whole thing just gets reduced down to a medical procedure. presumably. Like, I have no idea what that procedure could conceivably mean, because gender affirming care can also mean taking a new name, asking for different pronouns, could be changing your clothes. So procedures, I don't know. So here's what I wish for 2026. I sure as shit don't wish for sex rejecting procedures. What I wish for is the gift of science. I wish that the clear contradictions in a bioessentialist argument, the bioessentialism that leads to racism, that leads to sexism, that leads to attacks on identity and gender, that leads also to things like the Roman Empire going on crusades. These were people they didn't understand, people who were bioessentially different from them. So I wish that the clear contradictions in a bioessentialist argument will be exposed as the source of all human evil. I hope it gets exposed certainly as anti-American, that the idea that we are not all created, endowed by our Creator with the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but I hope it gets exposed and understood as anti-human. I wish in 2026 that we can begin on the path to acknowledging that each of us is a human and worthy, at the very least, of basic respect and basic care. It's a bunch of bullshit to push bioessentialism as a political goal. There's my gift, the gift of science. I wish for the gift of science. Oh gosh, this was perfect. Thank you, Miranda. Miranda brings up the more she learns about different belief systems, the more she finds intersectionality. So intersectionality implies that identity has many intersections. Not just the physical, but also your cognitive, your behavioral, the social status. There are so many lines that intersect in you. And so intersectionality, I can't remember when we talked about it. A couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I talked about feminism and how third wave feminism began to consider the idea of intersectionality. That it wasn't just like, what primary and secondary sex characteristics do you have, but like, what kind of person are you? So there you go. So anyway, sorry, getting back to you, Miranda. The more she learns about different belief systems, the more she finds intersectionality. We're all just trying to find meaning in our time in the world. Nobody knows what happens next, even though some think they do. Yeah, I'd weep at the thought of being treated as a human too. I can't believe the type of vitriol that gets spewed around that we think of as like normal politics. This is just politics, right? It's not politics. It is anti-human, and it is hateful. I can't believe that kind of thing happens. Do I want to read more? May as well. Oh gosh, this is a great one. I'm glad I popped it up. Angela says she wishes the trans community could be accepted like it was 8 years ago. But I doubt it will be accepted again in my lifetime. God, only 8 years ago. Isn't that fascinating? How much has changed even over just the course of 8 years? Which, by the way, I mean, if you're not paying attention too much, that would be about the time that the Trump administration took office for the first time. Because I think back to like how I was in graduate school. It was in the 1990s in rural Georgia. And it felt like I had more acceptance than I do today in 2025. What the hell happened there? And here we go. So I want to I just happened to see this. I don't know if you meant right wieners or not, but I love it either way. Suppose says that's the problem with right wieners and MAGA. The more focused on the physical act of sex. Yeah. Instead of seeing people as unique individuals with lives they're living. What's fascinating is then they call themselves the, oh darn, oh you did mean wingers? I like right wieners better. That's So much funnier. Um, yeah, they're very focused on this idea of sex, this idea that the body is all there is, and yet these are the people who also say that these are the people who also say that they're highly committed to the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Wrong, because the two cannot actually coexist. You cannot have a bioessentialist argument that some people are more equal than others. Thank you, George Orwell. You cannot have that bioessentialist argument that some people are more equal than others and simultaneously have an abstract philosophical concept that says that humans are by nature identical when it comes to the rights that they should receive. That one might have gone a little bit too a little bit awry there. Thank you, Bo, for bringing that up. Um, all right, well, here's my next gift. Uh, Winter Solstice. So I mentioned before, Winter Solstice was about celebrating family. In part because these coldest men. I'm talking about our ancestors here. I mean, we see this less today, at least in the Western world. But it used to be that the coldest months of the year were very uncertain. Do we have enough food? Do we have enough blankets? Do we have enough wood stacked up? There was the literal question always at the back of people's minds: would Grandma make it through the winter? I mean, at least until Grandma didn't. But then you'd go, no. Like, that was pretty straightforward. But there was uncertainty there. Is everybody going to be there in the spring? And so you gathered together in the winter solstice, on the winter solstice, and you gave gifts to each other. You expressed your love for each other because it wasn't clear if you are ever going to see them again. Because the weather might actually keep you apart. It didn't used to be that we could fly from like here to Milan. I guess I'm not flying directly from anyway. The weather might keep you apart. Somebody might fall sick. So you celebrated family. You showed that you loved each other. And I don't necessarily mean blood family here. I mean, I already mentioned above, right? The bioessentialist argument means that there are some people who will reject you. The Christian worldview is that the queer experience is just plain wrong. So I don't have to mean blood family here. I might just mean chosen family. And the queer community, as every one of us probably here knows acutely, struggles with family. So I wish for the gift of family in 2026 that each of us may be accepted by our families, and failing that we may find a community that loves and cares for us as family is supposed to do. Hi, Matt. I didn't see you come in. And thank you so much for all the gifts. I'll make sure to to distribute them again. Remember? Matt and I had a long conversation yesterday. It was kind of fun just talking to him in private. That kind of sounded weird, but you get where I'm going. And that was the last thing. What else do we have? There was something else. Right. Right, wieners, right. So maybe, right? Wieners, wankers, the wrapped terms. I do like that. Bioessentialist right wankers. There you go. They're also the ones turning themselves into plastic with awful fashion, makeup, and gender-affirming medical beauty procedures. The irony is rich. So rich. I do enjoy it. Christy Nome, probably Pam Bondi. We certainly know Lauren Boebert. Ah, well. Do as I say, not as I do. How's that other thing go? Equality for me, but not for thee. Is that phrase? Oh, good goddess. Oh, right. You did mention this. Margie says tomorrow she's seeing family members she hasn't seen in over 32 years. Yikes. I hope that goes well. Matt says he's sneaky like a ninja. Oh, yeah, well. We'll talk about that later, I guess. where was I talking about? Oh, here we go. Sorry. I got one more gift that I wish for the world in 2026. And really, if we look at the last two that I was talking about the gift of science, the gift of family, when you put bioessential arguments at the center of your politics, then, as we've seen, family may end up rejecting the queer community, and obviously, the nation has tried to oppress and suppress who we are, and that's why we need first the gift of science, and then the gift of family, because recognizing, like the U.S. Declaration of Independence was supposed to do, recognizing that all humans are human and by nature sacred. Sacred. I don't use that term lightly. I use the term sacred because life is sacred. All life is sacred. Human life definitely, along with the rest of life on this planet, when we recognize that we are all by nature sacred, then we choose to love each other because there's no other choice. Why would you hate what is sacred? We choose to support each other because that's just the normal thing to do. You support those things that are sacred, and as they support the sacredness within you. We choose to treat each other as we are, which is as sacred beings. So I wish, I'm making myself cry. I wish for the gift of humanity for our world in 2026. I wish that the hate and the discrimination that leads to poverty and to war, I wish that that is exposed, not as building up a country in a global vacuum, but as an overall millstone on the human species and the planet. Because the longer that we choose hate, the longer we choose discrimination, the longer we choose bioessentialist sexism, racism, the longer we choose all of this, the longer we're all going to suffer. We're going into the coldest months of the year when we need to gather together. And so I wish for the gift of humanity. That was all I had to say. That last little bit, I was like, that might be getting a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Poignant than I actually expected. So there we go. Here we go. Here's something from Angela. The Christian Church. Well, yes, here we go. So thank you for bringing this up. So Angela says the Christian Church decided Christmas would be celebrated at the same time as a pagan festival and not necessarily the same time Christ was born. Right. So remember I was talking, the Holy Roman Empire was, the Roman Empire in general, was really good at syncretism. Right? It was much easier to go, hang on, you have an existing holiday. Okay, you have an existing holiday and you say that's when the sun is born. We could choose that. Definitely use that. And they did. Right? I mean, that's why I love saying those words. I go, well, I'm celebrating the winter solstice because that's when the sun is born. And people go, that's right, the sun is, wait, what the fuck did you say the winter solstice? What was no, that's Christmas. And I go, oh, I know, same thing. I mean, you misspell sun for what it's worth. Just saying. And there's so much interesting stuff with the Gregorian calendar, right? So Pope Gregory, and I forget the time. I want to say 13. Matt's going to say it's like either the 800s or the 1300s. And I totally forget. But the Gregorian calendar is a really weird formulation, because there was at least a time when they just kind of lost like a few days in there, like switching from one calendar to another, 5 days or so, 4 or 5 days, which is probably why the 21st, which is around the time, December 21st, around the time of the winter solstice, depends, it changes every year because of the actual, because you have like actual rotation. And believe it or not, humans don't define time. What a surprise. Where the hell was I going with that? Oh, yeah. So the 21st and the 25th, there's a an offset there. And I think part of that is just because the calendar changed, which is sort of interesting. Ooh, Khaleesi is here. I love your hair so much. I was just looking at your profile like a week ago, and I was like, I love her hair so much. Their hair so much. An interesting tidbit, apropos of nothing. It was about 5 years ago, we had, when you look at the definition of Easter, when is Easter supposed to occur? Easter is supposed to occur on the Sunday after the first full moon, after the vernal equinox, so the spring equinox. And we had a day when we had the vernal equinox in the morning, the full moon, so then the full moon in the afternoon. And so technically, that should have been that Sunday. It was like on a Thursday or something. So Easter should have been that Sunday. Thank you, Margie. Give me 1 second. I'll pop that up. Anyway, as it turns out, when the Gregorian calendar was developed, being put together, whatever, turned into a set of rules, however you want to call it. Wow, I lost my train of thought. Good job. Oh, yeah. Sorry. So when they were putting this together, they're like, well, when the hell is the vernal equinox? And there were probably some priests who were like, oh, dang, it's like a calculation. We're not going to have Kepler born for a while. Hundreds of years here, so we can't really say when the spring equinox is, the vernal equinox is, and so we have they just said the 21st. They said, well, March 21st, then screw it, even if the equinox is not on March 21st, because they were just like, well, that's complicated, that's hard things are hard. Let's just make it. We're religious. Why don't we just say fuck it and we'll just say the 21st? So. Wait, what? Where did this come from? Margie says she spent the entire day in bed the day before yesterday and ate nothing. It would suck. Your stomach was a vacuum. I hope you're okay now, Margie. I like this, Angela. Thank you. Angela says she doesn't care what or who people are. It's about how they treat her and the people around them. I agree with you entirely. I don't know why we break our whole world into us versus them. I don't know if I mentioned at least a week ago, I spent the week in Los Angeles because I had my sister, it's not that important. My sister had some surgery. That's important. And so I was out there to help her out. Laura, I don't think you're listening, but if you are, I hope you're doing well. I was out there just to provide her some support, but we had a ton of time to talk. And we ended up we kept coming back to this idea that, like, why would you purposely want to shit on somebody else? Like, what? Unless that's your bag, which that's not what I'm talking about, okay? Like, if that's your thing, go at it. That's not my point. My point is, like, why would you go, I want a political system where some people just get hosed, right? Like, that's going to be our political system. Some people get hosed. Why would you do that? I don't have a reason why. I don't have a reason why, and I can't imagine those other people do. That it's just something that's like, well, right now we can't back out of it more than anything. Here we go. So Margie says that Wednesday, September 2nd, 1752 was followed by Thursday, September 14th, 1752. There was a French Revolution thing that I know came close to like 2 weeks. Was that the one? Is that what we're talking about, Margie? Because I have seen some of that. All right, so Bo says they thought the solstice was on the 20th this year. I don't remember exactly the time. Where I am right now, the solstice was at, I think it was about 8 in the morning. I could look it up. I have a very spiffy app on my phone, but I'm not going to do that. It's not that spiffy. Actually, it's pretty spiffy. It does have a bunch of neat things. It's like one big, huge Kepler, probably Newtonian celestial mechanics application. And if celestial mechanics is your bag, as opposed to shitting on each other, here you go. Lost my train. Oh yeah, the 20th. I think it was about 8 in the morning here, which is in mountain time in the United States, which means that it would have been like the 20th, could be the 20th farther that way, because I'm only -7, I guess. So it could be like the 20th from a certain bit forward, is my point. Wait, am I going the wrong direction? No. Yes? No. Anyway, time zones are hard, folks. But yeah, it depends on where you were. Here it was like the 21st at about 8 in the morning, so. Um, ooh, here you go. Margie says the solstice was at 15:03 Universal Time, so Greenwich time, GMT on December 21st. Okay, so if it was 15:03, that makes sense. I think it was like 8:03 here then. Of course, right, that'd be -7. Yeah, there you go. And so if you're more than 15 hours, more than 15 hours west of Greenwich, then it should be on the 20th. Neat stuff. Time zones. Not really. All right. That was enough of that. I think what I'll do, is it 9? Oh, it's right now 9:56 p.m. UTC, 2 p.m. Yeah, 9, yeah. So I'm 7 hours behind it now in Mountain Time. So behind Greenwich. So here's what I'm gonna do. I get 2:57 on the clock. I get 2:57 on all clocks, I guess, not just the clock. Wait, you're saying? Yes, the actual right. Sorry, the actual solstice was about 7 hours ago. Yes. No, wait. Something like that. Yes, 7, 8 hours ago. It was this morning, though. I guess what I'm saying. Margie is mathing. Hang on, we're mathing here. Margie's better at mathing than I am at this point, so that's good. Yeah, she was right. So, in any event, in the U.S., yeah, the solstice occurred this morning. All right, so I'm going to take a break. I got 2:57 on my clock here. I'm going to take a break, do 5 minutes, and then we can come back, play some games. Hopefully, that little bit about the winter solstice, as well as at least my spiritual journey. Hopefully, that was fun too. And if it wasn't, at the very least, I hope you liked the gifts of science, family, and humanity. So I will be back, and we'll do more things. We'll play a video game. That was particularly vague. All right, be back.